Alright, now we've come across in algebra so far, we've come across equations such as this. Let's suppose x plus 3 equals 5. Now we've described x as a variable, so this is an equation with just one variable in it, and to solve it, to find a solution, the solution for x is rather simple because we just subtract 3 from each side of this equals sign. X plus 3 minus 3 gives you x, and 5 minus 3 gives you 2. So in this case, the one and only solution is x is equal to 2. That's what makes this come out true. And then we've dealt with equations in two variables, where we have x as one variable and y as another, and we've said that there are many solutions. In this case, 0 and 5, 3 and 2, 2 and 3, and so on and so forth, many. But if we know that that is true, if we want to find a value of x and y such that that is true, and moreover such that this is true, then these are simultaneous equations, and we can use them together in order to find one or at least many fewer solutions, possible solutions for x and y, and those are called simultaneous equations. Let's suppose we have this x squared, which you'll recall from our earlier presentation simply means x times x, two occurrences of x, that's what the 2 up here, the squared, means, multiplied together, plus x itself is equal to 2. Now how on earth are we going to find a solution for that equation? Well, let me just change color and we'll show you how it might be done. First of all, let's modify this equation so that we have on the right hand side a 0, and it's going to become clear why we want a 0 on the right hand side in a moment. So let's take 2 from each side of this equals sign. So here we have, if we subtract 2, we have x squared plus x minus 2 equals what? Well, we have to subtract 2 from over here. 2 minus 2 is what? It's 0. Now I come to why we want a 0 over here on the right hand side of the equation. Because do you remember when I described in an earlier presentation where we have two things multiplied together? Let's suppose it's a times b, and those two things multiplied together equals 0. Then we know that either a is equal to 0 or b is equal to 0. So what we want to do is to find two numbers which multiplied together give us this number, x squared plus x minus 2, and then I will know that one of those numbers, much as up here, one of those numbers must equal 0. Now of course the numbers that I'm looking for are going to have x's in them. How could we possibly do that? Well, let me first of all give you an answer. Let me put two numbers in brackets because these numbers are going to have x's in them. And let me take a look at how we would do this. And these two numbers are multiplied together, so there's a little multiplication sign in between them, but often we leave out that multiplication sign because where we have two sets of brackets, we're sticking right together. We know that to multiply one by the other. And let's suppose that we have x minus 1 is multiplied by x plus 2. How are we going to simplify that? What does that work out at? Well, x minus 1 multiplied by anything is simply x multiplied by that thing minus 1 multiplied by that thing. So let's look at x multiplied by this thing, first of all. So what do we have? We have x multiplied by x, and what does that? That's x squared. And then we have x multiplied by plus 2. What's that? It's plus 2x. And now we have minus, because we're going to look at the ones over here. And let me just change color. And let me just put this in brackets. So it's minus 1 times x plus 2. Right, so what do we have? Well, we have 1 times x, which is x. So we have minus x. And then we have 1 times 2. And what's 1 times 2? It's 1 times plus 2 is plus 2. Now minus x plus 2 is minus x minus 2. If we take away the brackets, because this is on the outside, that sign there changes. Minus x plus 2 is simply minus x and then another minus 2. So what do we have here? We have x squared plus 2x minus 2. And what's that? Well, that's x squared plus 2x and minus 1x is what? It's plus 1x minus 2. Yes, it's exactly the same as, whoops, I meant to change color there. It's exactly the same as that expression over here. Those are the same expressions. So what have we got? We know that x minus 1 multiplied by x plus 2 equals, because it equals this, that equals 0. So this must equal 0. Now we have two numbers which multiplied together, in particular x minus 1 multiplied by x plus 2 is equal to 0. Now, if those two numbers multiplied together equals 0, then what can we say? Well, we can say again what we said up here. Either, this is our first case, either x minus 1, which is our first number over here, is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. And if x take away 1 is equal to 0, what is x? What does that give us? Well, let's point an arrow so that we know where we're going with this. Well, let's add 1 to both sides. X minus 1 plus 1 is x is equal to 0 plus 1, which is 1. And what about this next one here? Well, let me just change color. What do we have? X plus 2 minus 2 gives us what? Just x, it's supposed to be a squiggly x, is equal to 0 minus 2. And what's that? 0 take away 2 is simply negative 2. So we have either x is equal to 1 or x is equal to negative 2. So when you find an equation like this one where we started off here, x squared plus x is equal to 2, in order to find a solution, or a couple of solutions, as in this case, x equals 1 or x equals minus 2, what we do, just to remind you, the steps that we take is first of all to rearrange this equation so that we get something equal to 0. So in this case we've got x squared plus x is equal to 2. We want to make equal to something equal to 0, so we want to take away 2 from each side. That gives us on this side, on the left hand side, x squared plus x minus 2 equals 2 minus 2, which is 0. And then we want to use this to try to find two numbers, each involving x, which when multiplied together will give us the 0. We factorize this equation. Remember how earlier in an earlier presentation we talked about factors when we were discussing prime numbers, for example? Well, we want to factorize this equation, and in this case we've done it by saying this x squared plus x minus 2 is just x minus 1 multiplied by x plus 2. So those equal 0. So either that must be, those brackets must be 0, or those brackets must be 0. If that's 0, x minus 1 is 0, then x is equal to 1. Or if that's 0, that is x plus 2 is 0, then in that case x must be equal to minus 2. So either of those will fit. And let's just go back and check by substituting these values for x back into this equation. Well, let's suppose x is equal to 1. We'll start by suggesting x is equal to 1. Well, then what do we have up here? We have 1 times 1, which is 1, plus x, which is 1, plus 1 equals 2. Does 1 plus 1 equal 2? Yes, indeed it does. And now let's take the other possibility and fit that in. That possibility is x is equal to negative 2. Well, what do we get up here? We get x squared. That's minus 2 multiplied by minus 2. Well, minus 2 lots of minus 2 is 4. One lot of 4. 2 lots of positive 2, in other words. So that's 4 plus minus 2 is minus 2 equals 2. And does 4 subtract 2 equal 2? Yes, it does. So both of these work, and we get a check mark, and indeed that's what we have found up here. So we've just confirmed that these solutions, x is equal to 1 and x is equal to minus 2, work such that when we put them in for x up here, it makes that expression come out true.